There have been a couple of close games throughout the years against these two ball clubs, but in the last 2 years, I want to say South Carolina's been outscored. I'm pulling this number off the top, something like 86-6 in the last two games, or it's something crazy like that. So Gamecock fans don't really see it as a rivalry. I mean, your rivalries are with, of course, Clemson and Georgia and Tennessee and Florida, and Kentucky at this point. But A&M, it's not so much a rivalry. You just want to beat those guys at least once to make you feel okay about playing them every year. I know for a lot of fans, they would like to have Arkansas back on the schedule every year instead of the Aggies.
Well, but in all actuality, too, I mean, Texas A&M has had some good teams, but not really great teams. And,
right.
I think that when you look at it, South Carolina should have won at least one of these matchups between the two schools. But heading into this weekend, though, Gamecocks going with they're now the Fighting Zeb Nolans. No more Luke Doty this year. How do you think that's going to change the Gamecock offense?
Well, I've been thinking about this all week, Rob, and we talked about this on the fifth quarter postgame show. The offensive line has played really well in the last couple of weeks in terms of pass protection. Now, there are still some penalty issues they need to clean up, certainly, and the run blocking has to get better. But in pass protection, they've done a pretty decent job. The one differentiating factor between Zeb Noland and Luke Doty was Luke Doty's mobility. We were told that Luke Doty can get out of the pocket, make some things happen. He's more athletic, certainly, than Zeb. But with his foot injury, he was never really a mobile threat at all. And so if the two of them stacked up beside one another, who do you take as a pure passer? You go with Zeb Noland. So I think you have the chance to go back. You have to go back to weeks 1 and 2. What did you see against East Carolina? And in that first drive against Georgia, you saw more downfield strikes. You saw more of a downfield passing attack as best they could do against those teams. I think you might see more of that this week. You would like to think that maybe that opens up the run game just a bit more. The defense starts playing off the line of scrimmage a little bit more, maybe get some mano-a-mano there on the defensive and offensive line. You got a chance to create some holes. Zeb Nolan at quarterback is your best option, especially now considering Luke Doty is down for the year. So if he can do a decent job of leading the offense, you now have some natural older leadership that can calm the storm, because if there's one tough place to play in the SEC, it might be Kyle Field at night in front of the 12th man.
I'm Rob Sanders filling in for Teddy Hefner this morning here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. And joining me is my good buddy Justin Hall from the fifth quarter postgame show on our sister station, 103.5 FM WVOC. Of course, you can join us as soon as the games are over and get your opinions out there on this matchup. The most honest postgame show on the planet. No one tells us what we can or cannot say. We give you the absolute, the first reactions, and take yours on the fifth quarter postgame show on WVOC. When you really stop and think about it, aren't we at a point where the Gamecocks are sitting at a spot now where maybe it's time to try something else? Do you think that maybe it's time to put Jason Brown in the mix, see what he can do out there? I mean, the season they have to get 2 more wins to go to a bowl. Kind of like the chances with Mizzou, but after that, it's kind of a toss-up. But wouldn't it be interesting to try to throw just all kinds of stuff out there just to see what you got?
Well, that's the interesting point. A lot of people have talked about Jason Brown. A lot of people have talked about Colton Gauthier. There's rave reviews about him. The thing is, he's running the scout team, so he probably looks really good running everyone else's offense, but he hasn't run yours with the ones. Zeb Nolan has the time. Listen, right now you're at 4 wins. You need 2 to get to a bowl. You need 1, in my opinion, to have a very good year in year 1. 4 and 3 is where everyone thought this team would be, and that's where they are. Now, how they got there is a different story. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm willing to throw. Certainly, if this weekend gets out of hand, I wouldn't be surprised if Jason Brown is in this game in the fourth quarter at quarterback, and then you kind of turn him loose and see what he can do. But the other thing is, Rob, I don't know what this offense really is supposed to look like. I don't want to handicap Marcus Satterfield in year 1, but you had your starting quarterback go down with a foot injury in August. You put in the grad assistant at QB. Then your starter comes back, but he's obviously still hurt and probably needed surgery from the beginning. I'm just going to put that out there. that foot was never really healed all the way to where he was 100% good to go. So what is this offense supposed to be? We talked about this on the show on Saturdays. We don't really know what the identity is, so I don't know what turning it loose means. So we could see Jason Brown in the second half, no question. If things aren't going well with Zeb, I think you got to try, because you've got to, like nailing Jello to a wall, you got to find 6 wins. You got to find 2 more on the schedule, and it's not the murderer's row we thought it would be at the beginning of the year. But every other team on the rest of your schedule is better than you. So you have to pull out all the stops to get a chance to have 15 extra practices and get to a bowl game. So if that's Jason Brown at quarterback, then I think this coaching staff would be willing to do it.
All right, let's talk about the running backs for just a minute. You mentioned nailing Jello to a wall. Consistency is not something we've had from the South Carolina running game yet, but Zakondre White, when he's gotten into the game, he's made an impact. Why is he not, in your opinion, getting more carries? I mean, he got carries last week, but didn't see carries since the Georgia game before that.
Right. Coach Shane Beamer after the game said that he wanted to get the ball in the playmaker's hands, and the first name he said was Zakondre White, which made us kind of lift our eyebrows because he hadn't touched the ball since Georgia. Marcus Satterfield yesterday said that it's because the other guys have been performing better in practice. They've been practicing well and playing well, so there's really been no need to make the change. I don't really understand that, considering how porous and just anemic the run game has been all season. Zakondre White's a guy you got to get involved. He is a spark plug. I'm interested to see how much he gets this week, because Juju McDowell is back, and Juju McDowell seems to be the guy they want to roll with. But White has that ability, that escapability, and he's shifty. He is a lightning rod, and he can get some big plays going both in the run and pass game. But specifically, you've got to nail down, like nailing Jello to a wall again, who is your running back. I understand you want to get all these guys touches, but it's really hard to get 4 or 5 guys 5 or 6 touches each and expect your run game to be consistent, because every guy in that depth chart has a different skill set and a different way of running the ball behind an offensive line. There has to be some cohesion if you want to have a solid run game. And right now, the Gamecocks don't have that. They might need to stick with one guy. And in my opinion, I think in yours too, that guy needs to be Zakondre White.
Yeah, why not give him an opportunity? Let's look at the rest. We've talked a little bit about this game, but we mentioned the 6-game plateau that is kind of not really pie in the sky. I mean, winning 2 games is, they're going to have to pull an upset somewhere. I think the Mizzou game is something that I think odds makers have Mizzou as a 2-point favorite, I believe is what I've heard. But, yeah, I mean, that's within a field goal there. When you look at Florida and the way that their rush defense is just hot dog water, doesn't that look like the game on the schedule where if you're kind of hoping, it's like maybe that's one that the Gamecocks can get? It's in Columbia.
Yeah, that's one you look at that you can steal. Now, again, the good thing about the Gamecock schedule is you look down these last, 5 games? You've got 3 of them at home. And then you're on the road at Missouri, but you've got Florida at home, you've got Auburn at home, and you've got Clemson at home. So you like your chances better on a home field. That Florida game, to me, would appear to be the most winnable. Again, I don't know week to week what Auburn team you get. Some weeks it's good Bo Nix, other weeks it's bad Bo Nix, so you never really know which way it's going to fall. That Florida game, their run defense is terrible. If Grantham's still there after the year, I'm going to be stunned. If Dan Mullen wants to keep his job, you got to make a change. They changed everybody but him. That defense is just not very good. Now, their offense is pretty solid. But that's the game you look at home. November, you've got a chance to spring up and get a win over a team that did not look very good against LSU, and we all know what the situation is down there in Baton Rouge. So that's the game, I think, outside of Missouri, that appears to be your next most winnable game right now behind Auburn, with Auburn being next after that. So, yeah, if you can spring up and pull the upset on Florida, you'd be doing something well, because I think the week before that they played Georgia, so they could be pretty beaten up as well after the Georgia game. That's an opportunity for you. You might get up and steal 6 wins, and 6 wins is never where you want to be. You want to be at, 7, 8, 9, obviously higher than that. But in year one under Shane Beamer, with what this team has had to go through and rebuilding this program, 6 wins in year one with a win over Florida, I think Gamecock fans would take that every day of the week.
Justin Hall from the Fifth Quarter Postgame Show on our sister station. WVOC, joining us here. A couple more things before we get out of here. I've had this tumbling in my head with the college football playoff. If you get an Alabama-Georgia SEC championship game where Georgia is undefeated, but Georgia drops that game to Alabama, Cincinnati's undefeated, Oklahoma's undefeated, and we can go from there. You have a one-loss Oregon team, a one-loss Ohio State team. Who do you put in the playoffs?
Oh, boy. That would be worst-case scenario for the playoff committee. It would be best-case scenario for folks like us who get to talk about sports all the time. We'd have a lot to discuss there. I think there's no see, that's where it gets really convoluted. I think Cincinnati is in. I think they've played their way in as a group of 5. Now, where they're positioned when they get in, I'd be interested to see when the first playoff poll comes out. We talked about this, I think, as well on Saturday. Wouldn't be surprised to see them at 4 or 5 in the first playoff ranking, and then they would work them into the number 4 spot to have them go up against a Georgia or an Alabama. There's been no team, Rob, and I might be wrong on this, but outside of Georgia, has there been a team that's just been impressive from start to finish this year? I can't really put my finger on a team that has just blown me away all season other than Georgia. And really, it's been Georgia's defense. Their offense, to me, has not been uber impressive. So I'm interested to see how the rest of the season goes, because if Georgia loses a game, if they drop that one to Alabama, I think you throw everything out at that point. It is a free-for-all. I don't know if you put 2 SEC teams in, given the fact that Alabama, again, it would be how does A&M finish the year out? How does that loss to A&M look for Alabama? And how do they beat Georgia? It will be a wild month. And 4 or 5 weeks remaining in the season? It's going to be a wild finish to this year. That's probably been the craziest college football season since maybe 2007.
I just think that if you look at it from that perspective, if all of that happens, and Ohio State's only loss on the season is to the Pac-12 champion, who has 1 loss on the season, and Oklahoma's undefeated, Cincinnati's undefeated, there's only 4 spots. You're going to take the SEC champion regardless. I get that. But if Georgia loses that game by a field goal to Alabama, I think they're going to be some pissed off people in Georgia. Let's just leave it at that, because I think they'll probably be left out. I really do. That would be
crazy, considering they've been the consensus number 1 much this year.
Yeah, the good part is
because Ohio State.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Ohio State's played really well since that Oregon loss. Now, how does that Oregon loss look right now? I'm not sure, but again, a lot of one-loss teams, and you hate it for Coastal. They played themselves out of a bid. I kid, tongue in cheek, but Cincinnati to me is a team that I'm just really interested to see them get in the playoff, and hopefully they get a favorable matchup. I don't want them given up as the sacrificial lamb. I hope they get a good draw in the playoffs should they remain undefeated.
Justin Hall from the Fifth Quarter Postgame Show. Of course, you can hear us on WVOC pregame and postgame, but we are on the postgame working together, bringing you instant reaction from the South Carolina matchup. Justin, they can follow you on Twitter as well, right?
You can follow me at Justin B. Hall on Twitter. Be forewarned. A lot of Braves content on there right now, as they go for a pennant for the first time since '99. I don't even remember the last pennant.
Well, they are America's team, so that's what you should expect. So that's how it works.
That is true. That is true.
Justin, thank you for joining the program, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Y'all have a great day.
All right, there we go. Justin Hall from the Fifth Quarter Postgame Show. Phone lines are open, 803-978-1832. This person has been waiting. Welcome into Talking Sports. I'm Rob Sanders. What's up?
Hey, Rob, it's Ray. How you doing?
Ray, what's going on, brother?
Hey, man. Well, I was just calling about the Gamecocks. I think in these last 5 games, I think it's vital that they develop some type of offensive identity. And Rob, I'd just like to see him, put 4 receivers out there. I'm Jenkins, make him a receiver, not a tight end, because I think he's talented enough to be out there. And just, throw the ball around, use the passing game to open up the running game, because I think, in my opinion, these last 5 games, they've got to show some offensively. Hopefully we'll win a game or 2. But even if we don't, we got to show something, because we got to show something to these recruits.
Yeah,
that we want to get the ball passed off. We're going to have some type of offense.
I can agree on that, but I also have the idea of give some of the younger guys an opportunity, the guys that are going to be here next season, and tell them, look, we're going to lean on you a little bit, and not necessarily cast aside your upperclassmen, but let's put some of these younger guys out there and give them an opportunity and see if they can shine. And then that's going to give the coaching staff an idea of what they have instead of, guys that probably aren't going to be here next season anyway, either due to graduation or whatever. But I like the idea of giving the younger guys a chance and seeing what they can do. I mean, it just makes sense.
I tend to agree with you there, Rob. And plus, the younger guys can recruit for you as well. But anyway, I do think they got to get the offense thing figured out and quit making the little mistakes and the penalties and all that stuff. But they, like I say, win, lose, or draw, they just got to show something. And that's kind of what I'm looking for these last 5 games. Thanks.
All right, man. Hey, appreciate you calling the program. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Chat room is up. You can find it on the Fox Sports Radio Facebook page. Folks are talking about my buddy Kale says Oregon will be taken care of Saturday. And that's one of the good things. Teddy was actually talking about that earlier this morning with Mike Uva. And a lot of it weeds itself out. By the time we get to game 13, a lot of these things are going to be done. They were talking about Wake Forest. Wake Forest is 6-0. No one's has this whole thing about, oh, wow, Wake Forest, what happens if they go 13-0? If they go 13-0, they've got a legitimate gripe to be in the college football playoff. I know if people don't want to go with that, but they are winning a Power 5 championship and they're undefeated. What else do you want from Wake Forest? You can't just have the SEC Invitational. I know that people feel that way, but you just can't have that. That's not what's best for college football. And Mike made a good point this morning too. Why not? Why don't we just have, if we're not going to put, deserving teams in there or teams that the best 4 teams, then why don't we just have the SEC Invitational? We'll just let Alabama, Georgia, and I don't know, Auburn and Texas A&M, they can just play, and then we'll just crown them the champion. That's how silly some of that sounds. Now, granted, there are tough teams in the SEC, but after you get past that initial crop up top, you got a lot of force, is the way I kind of look at it. I really, really believe that. 803-978-1832. We have to take a break. We'll come back. This is Talking Sports. I am Rob Sanders, sitting in for Teddy Hefner. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. We'll be right back. Yo, this morning stuff is killing me. I don't know how people get up and do radio in the mornings. This is normally the time I'm at the gym pushing weights. Got my headset on, listening to something else. I'm having to have coherent thoughts. You want to know what's going to be a disaster? Is at 3:00 when I go on the air again. It's going to be terrible. Terrible. I agree with that, Twan. Thank you, Edwin. Good point, sir. I am drinking a Zoa, 0 sugar. I'm going to turn it that way. Zoa, 0 sugar. There you go. If Clemson has to win out and NC State has to lose twice. So Clemson is not that good, Ryan. They are not that good this year. Beth says, Rob, it's not that early. It's early for me. I'm having to speak in coherent sentences and stuff and have coherent thoughts. That's not good. I think that it's going to be a tough road to hoe this weekend for South Carolina. I think Texas A&M is going to line up and run the ball a good bit. Calzada is going to keep the Gamecocks honest with the pass, and the Gamecocks are probably going to lose by 3 touchdowns. I still don't know what the Gamecocks have on offense. They keep running the wrong running back out there, man. Scondre White should be getting carries. And if Kevin Harris is still hurt, they should have redshirted him. Seriously. I kind of agree with that, but I don't like. For some reason, I don't buy the injury report that Kirby Smart puts out there. I just don't see it. So, no, NC State will win the division there, B-Red. If they play Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh might beat that butt. So, there's that. Early morning frog in my throat. Welcome back to Talking Sports. I am not Teddy Hefner. I am Rob Sanders, filling in for Teddy. I don't know what he's doing. He asked me to fill in this hour for him. That's pretty much what it boils down to. Fill in for me, Rob, and take this hour and knock it out. All right. So I'm here in the mornings. Normally I'm on the air from 3 to 4 in the afternoons, right before Clemson Sports Talk, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. I've got to take a break here in a moment because I ran a little long in the last segment because I'm not really used to Teddy's clock here. But before we do that, someone asked, what are Clemson's chances for making the ACC Championship game? Of course, they lost to NC State. They, according to the FPI, which is ESPN's computer-generated model or whatever, the Wolfpack are favored in every game they play the rest of the season. Now, for Clemson to get to the ACC Championship, NC State's going to have to lose twice. Here are the games that are up for NC State. They go to Miami this week, 50.7% chance to win according to the FPI. Then they're at home for Louisville, 80% chance to win that one. On the road at Florida State, 74% chance to win that one. Followed by at Wake Forest, where they're favored at 56% there. 86% home game with Syracuse. Home game with North Carolina at 68%. Now, granted, the way that works out, it could be different across the board there. But if we're going by the FPI, Clemson's pretty much out of the Atlantic Division talk. I personally think that North Carolina, Wake Forest, and possibly Miami can beat NC State. Just from my perspective. I'm not talking about the percentages there. So we'll see how that works. As far as the Coastal goes, I think it's pretty much Pitt's to lose. Pitt's got, I think, the best team there, in my opinion. They may have the best team in the ACC. If you want the absolute best team, then the way to go, in my opinion, is have Wake on one side and Pitt on the other. I don't think they play each other in the regular season. But as far as having the two best teams, there'll be about 25 people in Charlotte for that game. But Wake might bring some folks. I don't think Pitt's going to drag a bunch of folks down for that. But that's kind of the way it'll roll there for the ACC Championship. All right, quick break. When we come back, Will Pelagic from WFNZ joins us. All the talk of Deshaun Watson possibly being traded. We'll get into that and a lot more. This is Talking Sports with Teddy Hefner. I am Rob Sanders sitting in for him. We'll be right back. Yeah, I think that Clemson's going to lose this weekend. I like Tennille's. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I like how she said, I can't even speculate on it anymore because Kirby Smart is an anomaly. How about Kirby Smart lies to us about injuries? Let's go with that. I don't know how hurt he is, so. Look, and I'm not trying to troll here, but don't you have some respect for Stetson Bennett for going in there and doing what he's done? I mean, he is leading the number one team in the country. Just saying. All right, welcome back to Talking Sports. I am Rob Sanders filling in for Teddy Hefner. I want to go out to the phones. And since I'm responsible for putting on a good radio program here, I'm going to bring somebody on that's actually good on the radio. I welcome in from WFNZ, Mr. Will Pelagic. My friend, what's up, brother?
That's high praise. I don't know if I can live up to that, Rob. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, hey, man, I know, like, right now, you just told me you are in the shadow of Sam Mills' statue up at Bank of America Stadium. You guys are you're fixing to go in for a press conference, right?
Yeah, we're about to talk our weekly convo with the coordinators, Joe Brady on the offense and Phil Snow on the defense, and then we'll check in on the Panthers Thursday practice.
All right, well, with that, being there with the coordinators today, do you think there's some smoke or possibly a little bit of fire there with Joe Brady might be in the mix to go back to LSU?
You know, it's always possible given his connection back there, but I doubt that there's anybody who's looked at his body of work, at least with the Carolina Panthers, and says that it's actually, you know, worth a look as a head coach. I feel like his pedigree was built mostly in college as that passing game coordinator. And honestly, I feel like when you look at his pedigree right now as a Panthers offensive coordinator, he really hasn't done much when it comes to this team outside of the times that he's had Chris McCaffrey. Chris McCaffrey will make any offensive coordinator look good. To me, I just feel like there's not enough of a body of work where I look at it and I say, oh my goodness, this guy has to be hired. I understand he came in as an offensive wonderkin, but it hasn't panned out, at least at this point, for Carolina.
One other question here about the Panthers. Yesterday, there were trade rumors swirling about Deshaun Watson, and the Panthers were one of the teams that were named in several different stories. It seems like I thought that they were going with Sam Darnold, but do you think that they would try to upgrade and get Deshaun Watson?
I don't think so, Rob. I feel like the Watson rumor, if you will, is somewhat on the back burner. I feel like if there's a team that's leader in the clubhouse right now, it is the Miami Dolphins. As I walk past some guys who are blowing some leaves, I apologize for the noise. But I do feel like when it comes to the Panthers, they are basically content with the Darnold situation being what it is. I don't think that they're going to make a move for Deshaun Watson. To me, I feel like they're standing status quo right now when it comes to the way that they'll handle their quarterback situation. To me, the Watson train has kind of left the station. I understand that there's a desire of this owner to really upgrade at quarterback, but to me, I still don't believe that that's the way they want to go.
Is it fair at this point, you mentioned Christian McCaffrey earlier, to consider him fragile?
Fragile? I wouldn't say he's fragile. I'd say he's unreliable right now when it comes to being on the field. I feel like it's
fragile was just a friendly word. I mean, unreliable is a much better word, but if you want to go with that, I was just thinking fragile because it seems like, especially in the Rule era, I think he's missed 19 games since Rule's been the coach.
Exactly. No, believe me, I wouldn't shy away from using a more harsh word because when you gave him that contract to be the basically be all end all of this offense, you expect him to be on the field, and this is the fourth different injury in the last two seasons, and he's not been able to be counted on to be on the football field. And the fact of the matter is, they built this offense. If you look at the way that they went through the first 2+ weeks of the season, they built this offense to be, Christian McCaffrey heavy. He was supposed to touch the ball anywhere between 20 to 30 times a game between runs and passes, and it hasn't looked like any semblance of what we saw in the first 2+ weeks in the last 4. So to me, Rob, when you build your offense around a guy who's a running back on a second contract, I just feel like it goes back to the old adage that those contracts, by and large, except for the very rare, and I would say very rare instances, those contracts are largely high risk and very low reward.
It's going to be interesting to see how things go with Christian McCaffrey and can he get out on the field? And when he's there, man, he's a difference maker. But just getting him there just seems to be tough there for the Panthers. As far as the Panthers go, man, I mean, it's kind of been, I don't want to say a wishy-washy season, but they've kind of had their ups and downs. Would you agree?
Ups and downs would be the light of it. That's just scratching the surface. I feel like, the first 3 weeks, they benefited on feasting on two teams that were weaker competition in the New York Jets and the Houston Texans, and then outplaying a Saints team that was still trying to find itself, and I would argue is still trying to find themselves under a new quarterback and some different pieces in there on both sides of the football. I do feel like, though, the games that they've lost these last 2 weeks were very, very winnable. And I don't think that Minnesota or Philadelphia, by and large, is better than any of the teams they beat in the first 3 weeks. They're just not playing well, and they've had a lot of key injuries. That's not an excuse. That's just not being able to overcome that when it comes to the guys they've lost on both sides. Not having Christian McCaffrey is a big, big loss. Their offensive line has been decimated with injuries, and even when it's been whole, it's failed to really stand up to the preseason promise from Matt Rule saying it was going to be better. I feel like a lot of people had some very viable questions about that unit going into the season. It has not responded. On defense, they lost J.C. Horn to a very bad injury, and really, I feel like that took a lot of what they could do with the pass rush out of their quartet because they felt confident in leaving both Dante Jackson and J.C. Horn alone on the outside in man coverage and being able to pressure the quarterback with 4, 5, 6 guys. Now they're basically only having to rush 3, or only able to rush 4 because they don't trust Keith Taylor or C.J. Henderson or anybody else on the outside with D-Jax. That's really affected their defense. And not having the vocal leader that Shaq Thompson is and the presence that he is, especially in the run game, has really, really hurt this defense. So they're not playing nearly as well as they did in the last 3 weeks of the season, or first 3 weeks of the season, excuse me. And I also feel like when it comes down to where their offensive philosophy is, I really couldn't tell you what they do well. And that's a real, real glaring issue right now for this franchise.
All right, let's pivot to hoops for a second because you were obviously all over the place. Last night you were covering the Charlotte Hornets, and you pretty much broke Twitter at Willie P. Style, 1.3 million views of LaMelo Ball leaving the press conference in a highlighter yellow suit. My question is, how did you get your suit tailored to fit LaMelo Ball?
You're the second person to ask me that in the last hour, Rob. Let me put you this way. It probably wouldn't fit me nearly as well as it fit him because he's filled out a little bit more than I am.
Yeah.
So at least in that sense, he looks better in it than probably I would have. But man, that is some personality. The favorite comment I saw was actually our digital engineer, Kiara Jacobs, had this comment on her Twitter, and I've seen it in a couple other places. He's not Dick Tracy, he's Drip Tracy. So he's definitely got all the personality. He's got the swagger, and he's got the game to go along with it. 31 points last night. He was the only player, youngest player in NBA history to go 35-5 in an opening night contest. He led a furious comeback. They came back from 23 down. They had a 24-0 run in the third quarter. One of the wilder games, if not the wildest game I've seen, and I've been covering a lot of basketball in person and just watching. And I don't know if I've seen one like that, Rob. It's emblematic of how exciting this team can be. Unfortunately, it had to do with the fact that they got completely outclassed in the opening half. Domantas Sabonis got whatever he wanted. Chris Duarte was an unbelievable unknown for the Indiana Pacers, and he went off for them. But the Hornets really, fought it and stuck with it. I was very impressed with the way that they came back in that ball game, and they got the free throws down the stretch they needed to get. Gordon Hayward, coming off of health and safety protocols and not playing an NBA game in 6 months, really kind of found his second win there in the second half, and I was really impressed with the way they fought back, and a signature win for James Borrego against a team that knocked them out of the play-in game last year.
Will Pelagic joining us here on Talking Sports, normally with Teddy Hefner, and I appreciate you joining us, man, and I tell you what, that I kind of want to find that suit, but I don't know if they make it for chunky little fellas like me. You gotta be a nice big tall guy to make that suit work.
Again, I'm going back to the comments from him last night. I don't want to say he made it himself, but it was either self-tailored or self-made. So I think that's a one-of-a-kind item.
Yeah, fair enough. And of course, you can follow. Go ahead.
And he has a Lamborghini to match too, by the way.
The same color.
Same color. It's linked all over my Twitter too. I put something on Twitter. He's got a Lamborghini that's the same color that he wrote out in last night as well.
At Willie P. Style on Twitter, Will Pelagic joining us on the program. Hey, Will, thanks for joining us, man. I really, really appreciate it.
I'm just trying to be like you, man.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later on.
Well, good to see you, bud.
All right, there you go. Will Pelagic joining us here on Talking Sports. My name is Rob Sanders. We'll take a quick break and wrap up the program when we come back. Yep. I was conversing with my wife. She was telling me about some stuff. Let's see here. Christian McCaffrey is on injured reserve, by the way. He can't play for like another 2 weeks, I think. So no, she's good. She teaches and she has a half day, so she thought she would call me and see if I could go to lunch, but she forgot that I was actually doing this show, which I don't want to do morning radio. This sucks. My brain is not functioning at all right now. It's like, I mean, I guess I could do it if I got into it, but wow. I used to do like morning sports reports, and that's easy because you could just record those. But this, you have to like be awake. I know people are like, it's noon, Rob. What's wrong with you? Still, it's like, this is tough. And my brain does not work this early in the morning. It just doesn't. Welcome back to Talking Sports. Normally, Teddy Hefner is here, and he brings you good radio at this portion of the day. Of course, he's on from 9 to noon every day. My name is Rob Sanders. I'm on from 3 to 4 in the afternoons. You can check out my show this afternoon. I'll be on from 3 to 4. We'll be talking, of course, some college football and whatever else I can drum up between now and then. I want to thank my guests that came on today. Justin Hall from the Fifth Quarter Postgame Show on WVOC, as we work together over there with Tim Frisbee, the former Gamecock wide receiver. And we talk about everything involving South Carolina and getting themselves squared away as far as post-game reaction and everything else. Then, of course, Will Pelagic, who is going into the coordinators meeting up with the Carolina Panthers, with their offensive and defensive coordinators, talking a little bit about everything from Christian McCaffrey and how the fact that he's fragile, to the Panthers are not playing up to par, to Deshaun Watson's probably going to go to Miami, all kinds of good stuff. And thanks to Will Pelagic for that, because he's a busy guy to take some time and avoid the gardeners at Bank of America Stadium, blowing leaves all over the place to talk with us, doing his thing. We appreciate him doing that. Of course, you can join us on the program at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the program this afternoon. Got about 7 minutes to go here in Teddy's show, but we can take some calls if you want to get involved. 803-978-1832. So comments from the folks in the chat room. I mentioned that I'm not used to getting up in the morning and doing a show. Now I know people are like, you started at 11 o'clock, Rob. Got to understand, I'm normally on in the afternoons. Kind of threw me off a little bit, telling me I wouldn't last on certain things. So hold on, we'll get to some of these comments over there. Let's answer the phone first. Welcome into the program. This is Rob Sanders for Teddy Hefner.
Hello, Rob. It's Bobby and Casey. How are you doing?
Hi, Bobby. What's up, brother?
One big story this morning. the American Athletic Conference has brought 6 other teams in. I sent you that as a direct message this morning.
Yeah,
I know you've had
Twitter.
guests on.
Yeah, I was going to mention that in just a moment, but the AAC getting themselves to a point where they're trying to be a major conference, but they did bring a bunch of teams in. We'll go over that, Bobby. Thank you for sending me that. I appreciate it.
But I just want to mention one thing. You could see the shift, like kind of like in 1992 with South Carolina going into the SEC with Arkansas. You notice that Central Florida and Cincinnati is these great teams, but they're never in the football playoff as it exists now equation. So they're actually them and another team who I forget is leaving to the Big 12 since Texas and Oklahoma is going to the SEC. So you can see the whole shift in college football following the money, and until they get the hashed out whether they're going to expand a 6, 8, or 12 team playoff, why teams want to migrate from a Group of 5 conference into the Power 5.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Bobby, I appreciate you bringing that, man. I got to get ready to head out.
Yeah, I'll call you at 3 again. All right, Rob? I'll be listening. I'm off on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll be listening from 3 to 4.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You have a great day, all right? All right, there you go. By the way, the teams that are joining the American are UAB, Charlotte, FAU, Rice, UTSA, and North Texas. That's going to make them a hell of a conference there. Maybe I'm not seeing things in the grand picture here. By the way, a message from, let's see here on Twitter from at Wash Chadwick says that ACC teams should let Wake win out for the playoff spot. And he goes, I'm just kidding. Yeah, there's that too. I want at this point, I'd like to have some chaos. If we're going to, I subscribe to the chaos theory. Let's have a 12-1 Oregon team, a 12-1 Ohio State team, an undefeated Cincinnati, an undefeated Oklahoma, a 1-loss Alabama SEC champion, a 1-loss Georgia team that just lost to Alabama by a field goal. Let's have this college football playoff committee earn their money. Let's make them sweat, and let's make them tell us why they put X team into the playoff and they left Y team out. And not let it be, well, we think that this is just no. Let's have something that's real. Okay? And if you're going to expand, which is what everybody thinks you're going to do anyway, say this is why we're going to expand. But I want those folks to be sweating a little bit. And I want the playoff committee to be different every year. Seriously. Put different people in there every year. The idea of let's just have the same people over and over again, I am firmly into the realm of certain people are going to have biases. You are going to have people that are going to say we should have 2 SEC teams regardless. We should have a Group of 5 team in the mix if they're undefeated regardless. We need to get that mindset. Let them have their say for a year, and then we move someone else in. New string of thought doesn't really hurt things so much. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. I'm Rob Sanders filling in for Teddy Hefner this morning on Talking Sports. I'm pretty sure he'll be back tomorrow on that front. The Biscuit Online says, no, you got to have the best 4, but who's the best 4 out of that mix? Seriously, you got a 1-loss Ohio State team. Their only losses to the Pac-12 champion Oregon, who beats everybody else. Who do you put in? How does that work? I mean, how do you determine who the best 4 is? And just the mindset of, well, X conference has more money, so they have better teams. It's not necessarily true. It's not. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you'd like to join us here on the on Talking Sports this morning. Someone asked in the chat room about the possibility of Spencer Rattler transferring from Oklahoma, where he did have a season there under Shane Beamer, to South Carolina. I don't know at this point. I really don't. So we shall see. Biscuit says, ask yourself what one team would do with another schedule. And that's when I put them into the Georgia schedule. Do you think that they go undefeated? they may end up with one loss to Alabama in the SEC championship game. Clemson's not what we thought they were. The rest of the Georgia schedule is not really beating down the doors tough. You can compare Ohio State's schedule as far as ranked teams and everything else this season to the Georgia schedule. I think it holds up. It's not like Georgia's having to play. They're not playing Alabama this year like they were last year. Just saying. It's fun to try to do that, but in reality, it's kind of like, okay. All right, so I hope you guys have enjoyed the program today. I don't think I'm doing 11 o'clock in the morning anymore. I will be back on the air today at 3 o'clock, though, and we'll be talking about some of the stuff that we've mentioned right here. Biscuit says Georgia has the number 1 ranked schedule in the country. That does not mean anything until the season is over. You do not know how tough your schedule is until the season is over. You could have teams that start at number 3 in the country like Clemson did, and they end up in the toilet. So the idea of saying your schedule is this tough now, in reality, is not exactly the truest thing, man. I do appreciate Biscuit joining the show. All right. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the program. I'll be back at it at 3 o'clock this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Thank you, Captain. Appreciate you. Appreciate the super chat there. You rock, sir. I don't know what your comment is. You didn't have a comment, but if you're just giving $10 to the show, thank you. I'll be back at 3 o'clock, but we'll see. We'll see how that works here. And thank you guys for joining me, man. Straighten me out, please. I'll argue with a stop sign. But thank you, Captain. Appreciate it, guys. Shut up, Bluegrass. Clemson would smoke Kentucky. Get out of here. All right, we'll see you guys later on.